Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I broke my lapel mic, so the audio might be a little iffy on this one, so hopefully you can hear me. Also burnt a brush pile this weekend and burnt my face while I was at it, so it's alright. I think it'll add an intimidation factor if I'm ever face to face with another human being again. We'll see. Got a new video today. I did the series on Google Maps last week, and people were asking about, in that one we did Geolocator to get the location, and we put that on the map, and a lot of people were asking about how you could stream that and get current positions as you went along. So we're going to do a project today where we get the stream function from Geolocator, use that to update the position, and then I think it's kind of useless unless you turn around and put that on a map. So we're going to bring in Google Maps and then follow the device as it moves across the map, keeping the user in the center of the map. So that's our challenge for today. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so I created a Flutter project by typing Flutter create map follow. Not feeling super creative with the names today, so I just called it that. And to get started, so what I'd like to do is build this up piecemeal so that we can kind of stop and check each piece as we put it into place, because there's some moving parts here that, if you get wrong on the first part, will just compound on you. And so let's start by getting Geolocator, getting the packages that we need, getting provider, and getting that set up to start. So I'm going to go to pub.dev, and I'm going to get Geolocator. So I'm going to find it first. Obviously, you can see I'm sitting on the page. I'm going to type in Geolocator, search that, and it brings me right back to the page I was on. I can go to installing and get the latest version of it there. So we'll put that in pubspec.yaml. I also want to get provider, but before we leave this Geolocator page, we have some setup to do here. So let's do that while we're here. We need to do some permissions here. There's a section here on Android X if you're using an older version of Flutter, which I don't know why you would be if you're following along on this tutorial, but just make sure that you are all set up here with Android X. And then down at the bottom, we have our permissions way at the bottom. Okay, so for Android, we've got two options. We've got find location and we've got course location. I'm going to be walking around in front of my house with this, so I don't want to go too far before it registers me. So let's get find location. And we want to take that and we want to put it in Android app, src, main, and we want it in our Android manifest right after the application closing tag. So between the manifest closing tag and the application closing tag, we want to put the permissions that we want right there. All right, then for iOS, you can come down here and grab these 2 lines of code here. This is to get the initial permission. There are 4 additional lines down here if you want the app to continue to follow you in the background when you have the app closed. We don't need that, so I'm just going to grab these 2 lines. I'm going to go here, close Android, open up iOS, and I'm looking for inside runner, and I'm looking for info plist. And so we just want to take this down to the bottom and paste that in there. Code format if you wish, and we're all set there. All right, let's grab provider before we do any more work. And so we can come in here to Flutter packages and we can grab provider. Take the latest version, put it in pubspec.yaml, just like we did for Geolocator. Hit save, let VS Code import that. And now we are ready to get to work. So let me close this iOS folder here. So I want to start by building the service that we will access for the Geolocator services. So we'll access our Geolocator API in a service. So we'll, inside the lib folder, we'll create another folder, which we will call services. And to that, I want to add a file that is called geolocator underscore service .dart. And so that's a class of geolocator service. And we'll want to start by bringing in an instance of geolocator. So let's do final geolocator. We'll call it geo is equal to a new instance of geolocator. All right, so we want two functions here. I want to be able to get the stream of the position. I also want to be able to get a future position, and the reason I want to do that is because when we work in a map, when you have the map loading, you want to load it with kind of a static initial position and initial variables, and a future works best for that. And then you can use a controller to control the variables on the map after you've loaded it initially. So by doing both, we're gonna take the strength from each one of those and apply it where it best makes sense. So we're gonna start with a stream. So this is the one that's gonna follow us around. And a position object is what you get from the geolocator. And we'll call that get current location. And we needed to feed it some options, so we'll create a variable called location options. And that will be equal to a location options object. And so we have accuracy. So we will do location accuracy high. And then we have a distance filter, and so the distance filter is going to dictate when your stream will fire with an event. So if you are out there walking around, or you're driving, or you're cycling, or whatever, this property is in meters. So if you set it to, say, 1,000 meters, every kilometer, you're going to get a stream event. Now, you probably want to go more than that. So let's say 10 meters for our distance filter. Slide that over so you can see. I might as well just stretch this across because we're not using the emulator yet. So distance filter will be 10, and that means every 10 meters, or as best it can determine, it's going to throw out an event that we can then log on our screen. All right, so that's our options, and then we can return geo.getPosition as a stream, and then we can pass it those options. That is not right. Location options. There we go. And all this is in the geolocator package page. Right here. So we've got the geolocation. We've got how you can do this as a stream right here. We've got location options. So all that is documented right there if you need to refer back to that. So that'll give us a stream of our current position. Let's also, while we're in here, build a future of position. And we'll call that get initial position or initial location. And that will be an async. And here we'll return geo.getCurrentPosition, not stream, just get current position. And we will give it a desired accuracy of location accuracy dot high, and that should actually be get current position. There we go. This is also documented right here. This is last known position. This is get current position right here. All right, so that is our service, and that's all we'll need there for now. And so let's build some visual components. So let's go to lib and let's do a new folder. And in there, we'll create a folder called screens. And in screens, we will create a new map.dart class. And we will call this a class of map. And we're going to create a stateful widget. So if you watch my other videos with Google Maps, I've only done stateless widgets so far. And that's fine as long as you are loading the initial values at the time that you create that widget. So we had a location of markers that we wanted to put on the screen, and we had those already when we created the widget, and we could load those at the time. When you want to actually come back to the map and update the variables to it, then you're going to need a stateful widget. You're going to need a controller, and a stateful widget is going to work best to assist you with that. So we will do extends stateful widget. And we will do at override. Whoops. Add. There we go. All right, we'll do a state and a stateful widget. Create state. And we will create an object which is underscore map state. All right, and then we'll create a class which will be our state. So underscore map state extends state of type map. And that is going to need a build method. Somehow I got Flutter semantics in here instead of material class. All right, and that needs a build there. Without a doubt, the fastest way to build a stateful widget, especially when you're a clumsy typer like me, is to build a stateless widget and let Visual Code upgrade it to stateful, or to get some snippet programs, some plugins that do that for you. But if you don't have those, just create a stateless widget, upgrade it. All right, so we got our build here. Let's return. Let's just return a scaffold. Let's just do an empty one for now. All right, so let's come out to main.dart. I just wanted to rough this out so that we could have something to put in main.dart. And in main.dart, we've got our sample application. Let's get rid of that. And so let's just take this big glob of green out of here. And then let's just take everything from class my homepage down right out of there. And then we can get rid of this, and then we can start the emulator. And I'll need to import map. There we go. All right, and then we can start the emulator. Okay, there we go. So if you've done everything correctly, you should have a blank screen, which is not something you hear very often, but remember that we created a blank scaffold here in map.dart. So that's exactly what we expect to see. We don't see any errors here in the terminal, so far so good. All right, so for starters in here, let's bring in an instance of our Geolocator service. And we'll call it GeoService. And obviously it's just a new instance of our Geolocator service, like that. All right, so let's make sure this is working with some information on the screen that will give us the latitude and longitude that stream is emitting. So let's do a stream builder for now. And move that to the next line, give myself some room. Our stream is going to be geoservice.getCurrentLocation. And so for our builder, we need a context, we need snapshot, and for return, let's just return a center widget with a child, which will be a text widget. And we'll return snapshot.data. Let's mark that our stream builder is going to be streaming a position, so we're not dealing with dynamics here. Let's import Geolocator up there at the top. So we can do, let's do our latitude. Actually, you know what? Let's do a string. And then we'll do $, and then curly braces around that. So that will be our lat. And we'll do a comma. We'll do a LNG. And then we'll do $, curly braces, and we'll put our longitude in there. Snapshot data dot longitude, and then we need to close our quotation. Let me code format that. Oh, I better get my semicolon on there first. Then I can code format. Then let's also in here just make sure that our snapshot has data. So if snapshot dot does not have data, we'll just return a centered child circular progress indicator. Okay, so when I save that, it's asking for permission to be allowed to track the location. We will click allow, and that is our latitude, longitude. Not very impressive. So I'm going to throw this on my device. I'm going to go outside and start to walk around and make sure that we are getting the results that we want. Before I do that, let's make that text a little bigger so it's easier to read for you. So let's do a style. Let's do a text style. We'll do font size. Let's try 20. I won't go too big or it'll go right off the edge of the screen. That's better. All right. I'm going to put that on my device. I'm going to take it outside and walk around with it. All right, I'm outside. I'm recording this on my phone, so it'll sound a little shaky, but we're walking into the forest, and there you go. Just changed there, I think. Yeah, watch these numbers carefully. So I got a 298 for the end of the longitude, and there it goes. All right, so have to go 10 meters to get that to register. I'm saying that like I understand what 10 meters are as a dumb American, but evidently it's kind of far. Walking along at a pretty brisk pace, and there we go. So the stream is working. It is emitting events every 10 meters or so, whatever that means, and it's updating our position. So let's go ahead and add the map next. Okay, so we know Geolocator is working. Let's go ahead and bring in map and make this a lot more interesting. So if we go back to pub.dev and look under Google Map, it's not necessarily the first one that comes up. It is Google Maps Flutter. Down here is what we want. And so we can go to installing. We can grab the latest version. And we can put that in pubspec.yaml. Right below provider. And save that. All right, go back to the README file and let's get started. So we're gonna need a key for Android and iOS. So we need to go to our Google Cloud console, and that's just console.cloud.google.com. And you need to have a project, and if you don't have one, you'll need to start one. And once you have one, you can go to APIs and services. And the first thing you want to do is you want to go to library and you want to enable both of the APIs we need. So maps is usually at the top. You can search for it here. We want to enable at least one of these SDKs, depending on your platform. So if you're only going to use it for Android, just obviously Android or iOS if you're on iOS, or if you want to do both, then you want to make sure you enable both of these APIs. So you just want to click on them. And mine is already enabled, but if it's not, you just want to click enabled there. And then you want to do the same thing for your iOS. I've got this API enabled, but if it was not, you just want to turn it on. Then you can come out of there, and then you're going to need a key. So if you don't have one already, you can go to create credentials, and you're going to want to create an API key. This is your API key. You are going to want to restrict that, so go to restrict key. And this is okay at none, but down here under restrict key, click restrict key, and let's just set up the Maps SDK for Android and Maps SDK for iOS, and click save. All right, so then we have a key here. So let's come back to our documentation for pub.dev and Google Maps Flutter. And for Android, we want to copy this tag here, this meta tag. We want to take it in here to our project, our Android manifest file, which if you remember was under Android app src main, and it is right there. And we want to paste inside here, but this time we want to be inside the closing application tab. So there's already a metadata tag there. We just want to add another one. I'll format that up a little bit. And you want to put your key here. So we come back to our credentials. And we want to grab that and put it right here. So that takes care of Android. And then for iOS, we want to go to our, there's two options here. If you are on a newer version of Flutter, you're going to get appdelegate.swift. So this is the one you want to do. And I'm going to just assume this is the one that you're on. If not, you want to follow the instructions up here. But we want to go, I'm going to close Android. We want to go to iOS. We want to go to runner, and we want to go to appdelegate.swift. And we want to do two things. First of all, we want to make sure we get the import for Google Maps. So we copy that, put it up here. And then we want this line in between Boolean and this generated plugin registrant. That there. So we can put that right there. And obviously you need to fill in your key here with your actual key. All right, now one more thing before we leave there. If we go back to the README file, there is an opt-in down here at the bottom for embedded view preview. At least on my device, this actually won't work unless I've opted into this. So I'm going to set that up. So in iOS, in the info.p list, we want to add a new key string value pairing. So if we just take the last one, the one we added for Geolocator, copy it and paste it. And what we want to do is replace the key with this value here. And then the value will be yes in all caps. And so you can try it without it. If you get a blank white screen when you go to produce a map, come back here and put that in there, because that likely is the cause. That's what happens when I run it, at least on the emulator. All right, let's close iOS and let's head over to screens, map.dart. I'm going to take this scaffold and I am going to take out the entire stream builder, because that was just a temporary measure to test our progress on Geolocator. And in place of the body, or in place of the stream builder, I'm going to put a center widget. And I'm going to give it a child of Google Map. All right, and then I'm going to give it an initial camera position, which I'll leave blank for now. I'll come back to that. I'm going to give it a... I'm going to do map type. I'm going to do map type.satellite. You can pick whichever you want. I'm going to pick satellite because when I go outside to track this, it's actually, I think it's going to be a little easier for you to see the movements based on a satellite, because I'm kind of in a rural location with not a lot of landmarks. So at least you can see the trees moving here. So I'm going to do satellite. All right. So we need to fill in something for this initial camera position, and this is going to tell it where the camera should be located when the map is booted up or displayed on the screen. And so this is where I want to bring in the future that we set up in the Geolocator service. I would like this widget to know already where it is supposed to be centered when it builds. And so what I'd like to do is actually take that outside of this widget and have the position already determined when this widget is called for. And so I'm going to do that by creating a final position, and I'm going to call that the initial position. And that's going to need a constructor, so we'll come down here and we'll do map, and we'll pass it this.initial position. And then for my initial camera position, I can now give it something. I can say the camera position object is going to take a target, and that target is going to be of type lat longitude. And so the latitude is going to be widget dot. So that takes me up out of my state object into the parent object. Initial position dot latitude. And then it's going to want a longitude, of course. So we're going to give it widget dot initial position dot latitude. And we'll format that, clean it up a little bit. And then also outside of a target, I can give it a zoom position. And I'm going to give it 18. So I want to be really tight. That's going to be really close on iOS. So if you boot this up and you find that it's just too zoomed in for iOS, you can back that off a little bit. Or if you have more landmarks where you are on Android, you can back that up as well. Okay, so that should be pretty much ready to go if we can pass it a position at the time that this widget is built. So we want to be able to do that right here, and to do that we need to call our service. And so I'm going to use provider to call that future, resolve that future, and then pass it into the map. So when we come out here to main.dart, I'm going to get rid of this green here, and I'm going to bring in my service. So we'll bring in geoservice equal to Geolocator service, instance like that. And then I'm going to wrap the material app in a future provider. So let's wrap it with a widget, and we'll call that widget a future provider. And then we'll give the future provider a create method, which will be a context, goes to geoservice, dot get initial location. So this is our future, and that's why we're using a future provider here. I need to import provider like that. And then in front of our home, or in front of our map for home, I can now use a consumer widget to bring in that position from the future. And I can tell it that that is going to give it a position, and I'll need to bring in Geolocator. And for a builder, I'm going to have context, a dynamic value, which I'll call position, and then a widget. And then I need to open up some curly braces here. And I want to take my map, put it inside here. And now I can take this position and pass it into the map, because this is now expecting a position in its constructor, and I can provide that here. And that needs to be a return statement. Get rid of that blue. And now, while that future resolves, we want to make sure that if this position is not yet resolved, if it's returning null, that we don't yet call that map. So we are going to put a position, a equation in front of here, and say if the position is not equal null, then give it the map. Otherwise, we're going to do a center widget with a child, and that will have a circular progress indicator inside of it. All right. Just going to code format that. I'll put it up on the screen for a second, take a look at it. All right, I'm ready to fire that up in the emulator. All right, well, that is not right. Let me take a look at what I did here. Oh, here we go. I got longitude twice, so let me change that to latitude. And let me try that again. All right, that's better. That's the San Francisco area where this emulator is tuned to be. All right, so this is this is not where I am, but this is where my emulator thinks I am. So that's the general area, but it doesn't show specifically where it thinks I am. So we can do that real easy with a new property called myLocationEnabled, and we can set that to true. Let's see. Oh, I botched that too. That should be myLocationEnabled, not myLocationButtonEnabled. Okay, so there we go, and the blue dot shows up right away there. All right, so this is meaningless to me, so I'm going to put this on my phone, go outside, and go for a walk and film that. All right, so there's me. Again, there's a little wind out here, so you might be picking that up. I'm moving towards the lower right portion of the screen as I'm walking, and you'll notice that I am actually leaving the screen. The screen is not adjusting with me. This is the out-of-the-box functionality you get with Google Maps widget. It will put you on there, and it can track you as you move. But if you want the screen to move with you and you want to stay in the center of the screen and have the map adjust to you, you have to do a little bit of work. And that's what we're going to do next. We have the stream already from our geolocator. We've tested that. We're just going to go hook it up so that the map follows us as we move around. All right, so back in our code, let's go ahead and create a controller so that we can modify the Google map after we have built it. So right here, we will create a completer, and that will be of type Google Map Controller. And we will call that underscore controller, and that will be a completer, which we will need to import. Great, so when the map builds, we can come down here and create a function. Let's see, on map created, there we go. And we can pass it that controller. We can tell it it's a Google Map controller. which we'll call controller, and open up some curly braces, and in here we will say controller dot complete, and that is our controller like that. All right, so that has set up our controller, and let's use it. So let's create a function down here, down below build, that will recenter our screen. So we'll create a future. It'll be a void, and we'll call it center screen, and we'll pass it a position. So whenever we get a new position from our stream, we will pass it into this function. It will recenter the camera and keep us at the middle. So in here we want to do a final Google Map controller, which we will call controller, and we will set that equal to await controller dot future underscore controller dot future. And then we will do controller.animate camera, and we will give it a camera update dot new camera position, and so that will be a, undo that, lost track where my parentheses were. New camera position. All right, so this we want to be a camera position object, and we will give it a space, enter, so I can give it a target. Let me undo that again. I'm unsure where I. All right, so we'll do target there. Lat, LNG. There we go. Position. Make sure I do this right this time. Scream at me if I don't. Latitude, comma, position dot longitude. I'm just going to stretch this across the screen. And then we can give it a zoom, and we can keep the zoom the same. So I have 18. If you have drawn back a little bit, you can set it to whatever you like. I'm going to code format that, clean it up a little bit. All right, so that's a function that will move our camera to the center of the screen, or to any position we give it at that time. And so we just need to set up our stream, and let's do that in an init state function. So we'll come up here, and we have a stateful widget. So when our state is created, we get to call this init state function. And this would be a good time to set up our geoservice dot get current location. So this is going to be a stream. We can listen to that stream. We can call that object a position. There we go, like that. And so every 10 meters or so, this is going to send our position down to us, and this is where we want to center the screen on our position. All right, so let's run that. I'm going to run that on my own device, and then I'm going to walk outside and do the same activity we just did before, but with this new functionality in place. All right, so I'm in roughly the same spot I was before, only this time, rather than the screen, or me going down and to the right, every time I move, or every time the stream registers that I've moved 10 meters or so, you see the screen actually slide so that I stay in the middle. So mission accomplished. We did it. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap that one up there. Today we took the Geolocator streaming function to actively track our location, and then we turned around and put that onto Google Maps and showed how we could manipulate the map with that data. So if you found it useful, please like, please subscribe, and we will see you in the next video.